Lesson 21, Big I, Life and Death, Part 2. In our previous lesson, we learned the basic shapes for 3-space and 4-space life and death. In this lesson, we will move on to study the shapes for 5-space and 6-space life and death. Let's first look at two classic shapes, which are known as the bulky 5 and the crossed 5. When studying 5-space life and death, these are two essential shapes that you must firmly keep in mind. They are classic shapes in WeiQi life and death problems, and their names are actually quite interesting. So, why is this shape referred to as the bulky 5? Well, in Chinese, it means knife handle. As it looks like a knife, this part here is the handle, and this part right here is the blade. As for the crossed 5, its shape looks very much like the petals of a plum blossom. Therefore, these two shapes have highly representative names in life and death problems. I've just set up these shapes on the side, a bulky 5 and a crossed 5. Now, in the center, we can also set up the exact same bulky 5 shape. And the crossed 5 in the center can look just like this. For the bulky 5 in the corner, we can set it up like this, and the crossed 5 in the corner looks like this. Okay, regarding the bulky 5 and the crossed 5, we must first remember that they are standard one-move life and death shapes. Let's place the white stones on the board first to surround the black stones. This way, we can observe this shape much more clearly. First of all, for the crossed 5 shape, it is quite easy to find the key point, because it is very obvious. The edge of the tiger's mouth is the key point. There are 4 tiger's mouths, right? So this position right in the middle is definitely the key point. Now let's look at the bulky 5 shape. For the bulky 5, the edge of the tiger's mouth is also the key point. In practice, it is actually more relevant for white to find this key point to attack. Because if black plays first, black actually has 3 different ways to make life. First of all, this move is definitely fine, and it is the most correct one. Black can also choose to play at this position, which turns the shape into a twisted 4. Playing here turns it into a lightning 4. We've studied both of these shapes and know they are alive. Although black has 3 ways to live, if white gets to play first, white must use placement at this exact point to capture the black stones. This follows the standard rule where the edge of the tiger's mouth is the key point. There's only one tiger's mouth here, right? The bulky 5 only has one tiger's mouth. We can test this out. If you play anywhere else, once black occupies this specific point, black gets one eye here. This position actually forms a real eye for black. Right, with 2 eyes, black is simply alive. Next, let's explain why white's placement here makes the bulky 5 a dead shape. Let's talk about the underlying logic behind this result. First of all, if black plays now, there is absolutely no way to make 2 eyes. Right, these 2 positions are me-I. Once white plays like this, it is very clear that black only has 1 eye. If black doesn't play, later, when white takes away the outside liberties, playing at this point will form a shape. This becomes a bent 3, right? This captures black, and playing at this point forms a straight 3. Okay, now let's see. If black ignores this, how will white capture black later on? It is quite simple. If white actually needs to take away black's liberties later, for example, if white's outside group isn't alive and black surrounds it, white, to survive, would need to take liberties and kill the black group inside. White can do it like this. Notice that this creates a square 4 shape, which forces black to capture. We've already learned about the square 4. We know that if white continues, it forms a bent 3, right? If you capture again, white can take away your liberties and capture everything. Of course, white doesn't only have to form a square 4. White can also form a pyramid 4. We just need to understand this underlying principle. Now let's look at the crossed 5 on the right. The logic is exactly the same. After white's placement, even if black ignores it, if white later needs to take liberties, white can form a pyramid 4 to capture you. Once the liberties are filled, black is forced to capture. Then white uses placement again, eventually forming a bent 3 to capture the black stones. Right? So once we fully understand this principle, we know that both the bulky 5 and the crossed 5 are standard one move, life and death shapes. Please keep this in mind. Now, some of you might be wondering about these 5-space life and death shapes. You might say there are more 5-space shapes than just the bulky 5 and crossed 5, right? Why don't we discuss the other shapes? Let me briefly explain this. For example, if we want to create a 5-space shape, we could set it up like this. Right, this is also 5 spaces. But without a doubt, this shape is obviously alive, because it essentially contains a twisted 4 plus 1 extra space, right? So this group is clearly alive. Similarly, if we want to try other setups, you could also create a shape like this. For example, a straight 4 with 1 extra space. This is a straight 4 plus 1 space. We know a straight 4 is already alive. So with an extra space added to a straight 4, it is definitely alive. Therefore, when we talk about 5-space, life and death, we only emphasize these two specific shapes, the bulky 5 and the crossed 5. Finally, let's move on to 6-space life and death and look at two classic shapes. These two shapes are known as the rabbit 6 and the rectangular 6. Let's first set up a rabbit 6 in the center. Okay, so this shape is the rabbit 6. Now let's set up a rectangular 6. Okay, this rectangular 6 should be very easy to recognize, right? It is a perfectly rectangular 6-space shape. Now, for the rabbit 6 on the side. And the rectangular 6 on the side. Next, let's set up a rabbit 6 in the corner. The rabbit 6 in the corner looks like this. And the rectangular 6 in the corner looks like this. Okay, let's take a look. The rabbit 6 and the rectangular 6 are also very classic shapes. The rabbit 6, which in Chinese is called grape 6, looks like a bunch of grapes, right? And the rectangular 6 obviously looks just like a brick. For these two shapes, we also need to Firmly memorize them. They are highly classic 6-space life and death shapes. The rabbit 6 is very easy to remember. It is a typical one-move life and death shape. Okay, let's once again surround the outside of this shape with white stones. For the key point of the rabbit 6, we again use the rule that the edge of the tiger's mouth is the key point. We will find that it is obviously this position right here. When white wants to capture black, occupying this key point means black is dead. Next, if black tries to play, okay, after playing like this, we will find that if black stops playing, later white can play here, and then here, using a pyramid 4 to completely capture black. Similarly, if black doesn't play anymore, later when white fills in these local positions, white can use the bulky 5 shape to capture the black stones. There is just one detail I want to point out here. Please note, when filling in the stones, white must be careful not to fill the wrong spot. If white creates this shape, black playing here will result in a mutual life. Now, we haven't covered the concept of mutual life yet, but we will discuss it in later lessons. So this is just to remind you that white must be cautious. When capturing black, you can fill this spot first, or you can fill this one first. This way it becomes a crossed 5. Both the bulky 5 and crossed 5 can capture black. Therefore, the rabbit 6 is also a typical one-move life and death shape. If black plays here, it is obviously alive, and playing here is actually also alive, because now, right at this position, another tiger's mouth has appeared. This makes both of these positions key points, right? This follows the logic we've learned, so it is alive. Similarly, if black plays here, it is also alive. But as we mentioned, for capturing, this is the only key point. Okay, the rabbit 6 is clear now. The rectangular 6 shape is a key focus, because the rectangular 6 behaves differently on the side, in the center, and in the corner. Please note that the rectangular 6 on the side and in the center are actually both unconditionally alive shapes. Let's look at these two shapes. First of all, there is no tiger's mouth. The rectangular 6 has no tiger's mouth. However, we know that usually when trying to capture, you need to play at the center point. Right? If white plays on either side, black can simply Atari in the middle and easily make life. This is quite obvious because there is an eye here and an eye here, as we've mentioned before. This shape is very similar to a twisted 4 with one extra space, right? Therefore, if white wants to capture black, white must play at the center position. Now notice that we've always emphasized there are two key points in the center, so black will take this position. Following that, if white plays here, black can play here to make life. The same applies to the top. This is once again the concept of WeiQi. Therefore, the rectangular 6 on the side and the rectangular 6 in the center are both unconditionally alive. However, please note that the rectangular 6 in the corner is a special case, because once its liberties are reduced, let's watch carefully as white plays at this position. As we mentioned, black's key point is to occupy the other center position. But when white plays at this position, if black tries to make an eye here, it results in a shortage of liberties. In other words, this position has actually created the effect of a tiger's mouth. When black plays at this position, attempting to make an eye and atari the two white stones, please note that because its liberties are tightly surrounded, white can actually capture black. Therefore, when white plays at this position, this black group is actually completely dead. Okay, as we just discussed, this move doesn't work because the liberties are too tight. Black has no way to make an eye here. And if black plays a turn after white's descent, this area becomes a bulky 5 shape. Right white has already occupied the key point and added an extra stone. So the rectangular 6 in the corner is a very special shape. It depends entirely on the outside liberties. If the liberties are reduced, the corner is dead. But if there is one open liberty, please pay attention to white. If white uses placement here now, after black clamps, because there is one open liberty, black is actually able to make life here. Black has two liberties. When white plays Atari, black captures and is unconditionally alive. However, with only one open liberty, white can play at this position. Then, when black plays here, white can bump right here, and this corner will turn into a multi-step KO. But black is still not unconditionally alive, so the rectangular 6 shape is quite special. We can generally remember the rectangular 6 as a living shape, but when it appears in the corner, watch the outside liberties. If there is only one liberty or fewer left, it is not unconditionally alive, and it becomes a one-move life and death. If there are two liberties left in this area, it is actually a living shape, because an internal liberty shortage will occur here. I will explain the internal liberty shortage technique in future lessons. It is a technique we'll learn later for making life. So finally, let's summarize. The rabbit 6 is a typical one-move life and death shape. The rectangular 6 can be remembered as a living shape. However, if it is located in the corner and has one liberty or fewer, it turns into a one-move life and death shape. Alright, in this lesson, we have studied the classic shapes for 5-space life and death and 6-space life and death. That will be all for today's lesson.